Hey, are you a high achiever who struggles with perfectionism? Do you get stuck in the cycle of overthinking? Do you do everything for everyone else because you think otherwise it won't get done? Do you feel like you should come with a disclaimer? Hi, I'm anxious. Hey, I'm Katy. Full disclosure, I'm not a therapist, doctor, or mental health professional. I'm just a career mama who also struggles with anxiety. For me, anxiety reared its head at the most inconvenient times, when I wanted to be present with my family, at those high-pressure business meetings, when I was laying in bed awake at night worrying instead of sleeping. I just wanted to relax and be able to have fun, and I know that you do too. What if you found tools to manage your anxiety? What if you knew how to enjoy life even though you are anxious? Look, it's time to put down that third cup of coffee and swap it for some lemon water. We're going to get control over anxiety so it can stop controlling you. Let's go, girl. Welcome to the Hi, I'm Anxious podcast. I'm so glad that you are joining me today. I can't wait to talk with you about this particular topic because it's something that I am currently simultaneously excited about and cringy about, but feeling excited and comfortable enough to share, and cringy knowing that I feel less cringy than I did before, but I'm on my way to feeling even less. So, without further ado, I wanted to share with you about how I've been processing failures lately. I think that especially as high achievers who also battle anxiety, we are really, really freaking hard on ourselves about failures. Am I right? Sweet, anxious, high achiever, you try and work so hard, and God forbid things don't go as you maybe had hoped they would or planned they would, and you count it as a failure, and you beat yourself up about it relentlessly. You shame yourself. You don't let yourself forget about it. When memories of these failures come up, you have a number of reactions that range from beating yourself up, shaming yourself, or maybe even just pushing them away like, "Oh my gosh, that is so painful. I can't believe I did that or failed at that or didn't do that right, didn't do it perfectly," whatever the thing might be that was a failure or you're perceiving as a failure. And they can just be so tough. But then also, lately I've been thinking a lot about all of the things that I'm afraid to start or try or to go all in on, to the point where I'm going to try and it doesn't matter if I fail or not. And in order to build myself a bridge from kind of one extreme to the other, from being so fearful of failure and ashamed of it that I shut down, maybe dwell on it, perseverate on it, push it away, and don't try, to the other end where, you know what, if I want to do something, I'm going to do it. And it doesn't matter what the outcome is going to be, whether I fail or not, whether I learn or not. I think we've all heard that saying, right? Like, there's no such thing as failing, you're only learning. And I think that where some of this win that I have had lately is coming from is this practice that I've been doing of debriefing. Um, so taking time to debrief how something has gone for me in the past or recently, and then just kind of using it to analyze as lessons learned. What went well? What didn't go well? What would I do differently next time? And maybe even doing some proactive planning like, oh, this is a process that comes up once a year. So I'm going to plug some things into my calendar to plan for next year so that I can maximize on the positive, minimize the negative, and get myself ready in advance. So lately, I have been noticing when something comes to mind that was a perceived failure for me. And instead of going to the place where I want to beat myself up and feel ashamed about it or just simply push it away because it's so painful I don't even want to think about it, I've been taking a little time to just sit with it and process it. And I've been working on just noticing where that feeling comes up in my body. So taking a minute to stop and where is that emotion in my body when I think about this perceived failure? So let me give you an example. Um, when I was younger, I had tried a multi-level marketing type of business for a period of time, and it just wasn't for me, didn't go well. It has been a source of pain for me in the past. And so now what I've been doing is when I notice thoughts about something like that, for example, that multi-level marketing business, I will stop, take a deep breath, close my eyes, and just go into my body to feel like where is that feeling located? For me, I felt that one kind of in my upper stomach area, kind of below my ribs. And I just did my best to try to sit with it. And this is really, really hard to do to start with. I just want to warn you of that. You'll feel resistance to it, but I promise you, if you stick with it, it's worth it. So I would sit and I just went into my body and I breathed. And I tried to describe in my mind to myself what that sensation in my body was to the best of my ability. So, what did it, where was it located? What did it feel like in my body? Did it have a color? Did it have an intensity? Did it have a size? Did it have a shape? And the longer I would sit and feel into it, I noticed that it got smaller in size and less intense, which I found really, really interesting. And I don't know that I would even describe it as a painful sensation in my body, but a sensation nonetheless that I identified as being associated with the emotion I was feeling around recalling or thinking of this supposed fear in my past around this business venture. And I realized that when I made space to do that, I was also able to give myself a little grace and think about what was going on in my life at the time and basically do a debrief that far back. And this was like probably 20 years ago, maybe, but just to think about what went well, what didn't go well, what I might do next time, and whether I would do it again or not. And I have just been astounded at how doing these couple of processes that really aren't that time consuming, although they might sound kind of time consuming or weird or woo woo to start with. But I'll tell you what, doing that for this and other past quote failures has just been so powerful for me that I notice when I think of them again, I'm thinking of them in a whole new way rather than trying to immediately shove it away like, oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing that I did that. I can't believe I did it. I can't even think about it. Or, oh man, like what a failure. Think of the money and time I invested in that. I could have been doing something else. So beating myself up or oh my gosh, I can't believe, I went to business school. How could I fall for a scheme like that? That's so stupid. So even just kind of shaming myself, I've had all those thoughts and then some about this one particular failure, but I'm noticing now that as I've allowed myself to kind of process in this new way, rather than the unhelpful old ruminating way, but just to sit with how I feel about it and be able then to think about it in a little bit different way and maybe learn some lessons from it, it's a little less scary. So the thought might come up, but isn't as intense, isn't as strong. And I maybe am thinking about too the positive that might have come with it. So thinking about some other past failures that I've processed lately, I think about maybe lessons that I have learned, people that I have met, and if nothing else, just knowing, well, that wasn't the direction that I was meant to go in at the time. And I learned that very quickly, and maybe it was hard, but then it pointed me to something else that maybe was more right for me, or was successful, or felt better for me, whatever the case might be. So I just wanted to stop and share this with you. I feel like this is maybe something that's going to become a regular practice in my life that I think I'll be able to refine and use more and understand better. And I can't wait to circle back and share more with you about how that's going and what the results are, especially if they're positive, because I want you to be able to benefit from it too, if it's something that might help you. So I would suggest to you this week, if you have a moment where you recall or notice a quote failure in your life, I want you to stop and just sit with it if you're able, or maybe make a note to sit with it later if you don't have time. Like if you're a busy working parent like me, you think to yourself, okay, I think about this stuff as I'm busy trying to play with my kids or making them dinner. How am I supposed to stop and feel your emotions? That's okay. Just make a note in your phone, make a note on a piece of paper. And when you do have time, maybe before you go to bed, maybe first thing in the morning, maybe when you get a little bit of time during nap time, mama, just sit down or lay down, whatever's comfy for you. Close your eyes and breathe and conjure up the thought of that failure in your life. And then notice where you feel it in your body. Notice the size of it, the shape of it, the intensity of it. Maybe it's got like a certain texture, or maybe it's even a certain color. I've had that come up a couple of times. I find that really interesting. Sometimes when I'm processing, there will be a color, sometimes there won't. One thing that I've noticed that seems to be pretty consistent is size and intensity seem to diminish the more that I'm willing to sit and breathe into it. And then see what comes out of that for you. And if it's helpful to you, maybe even take it that step further and do that little debrief with yourself. Well, what did go well? What didn't go well? How can I use this in the future? What did it steer me away from? What did it steer me toward? And see how that feels for you, sweet, anxious, high achiever. I hope this is helpful for you. And if you haven't yet joined our free Facebook group, I would love to have you there. The link to join is in the show notes. It's an incredible group of wonderful, high achieving, anxious women just like you. We'd love to have you there. It's a place where we can come together and share learning, inspiration, and maybe even you could share what you're learning as you apply what I've taught you here in this podcast, because I'd love to hear from you and I'd love to support you in that. So again, the link to join is in the show notes, and I'd love to have you inside the free Facebook group. That's all I have for you today, sweet friends. I can't wait to talk with you next week. Hey friend, thanks for being here. Did today's episode help you feel more in control of your anxiety? Did it inspire you to rest or relax? Or maybe it challenged you to really look at why anxiety is a part of your life. If so, I'd love to hear from you. If you would take 30 seconds, pause this episode, scroll down in Apple Podcasts, and leave me a review, I would be so grateful. See you next week. Disclaimer, I am not a medical professional, and this podcast is not providing therapy or medical treatment. Contents of the podcast are for informational purposes only and are not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult your healthcare provider with your health questions and concerns.